Hey everyone, let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. I was looking down for a second because I got notes for this conversation. Excuse me, I am recovering from a summer cold. Well, I wanted to come to you solo today because I wanted to talk about something that is heavy on my heart, dear to my heart, and um, it is about relationships. And I really wanted to come and talk about my relationship because when I entered into this relationship, I shared it with you. And so now that I am where I am, I want to share some things with you about what I have learned about myself or experienced about myself and the relationship that I was in and that really filled my heart so much is ended. And I'm not here to throw him under the bus. I am here to talk about something that is really important, which is not that. It is about self love and self worth, which is something that I have talked about in other episodes of Let's Start Healing. And I have mentioned that that's been a lifelong thing for me, coming to a place of self worth and self love. And I have largely been able to do that through my spirituality, through my spiritual walk. Once I decided, hey, I want to do something about this, about my low self esteem. A lot of times I know that I don't come off as if I have low self esteem or if I've ever had low self esteem, because aside from that, I have always been someone who stands up for myself or defends myself. And I can spar with you verbally. That's the way I grew up. But also, I have had in the past a little voice in my mind that would say, "Oh yeah, but you're not lovable. Oh yeah, but you're not valuable." And it's crazy that we might think things like that, but I think we can have, some of us can have a tendency to have a voice that will say that, yeah, but, and that, yeah, but there can be a tendency to hear sometimes, yeah, but you're this, something minimal. That is not true. That is not true. And a point of this podcast is to let anyone who needs to hear this know, because it is true for all of us, that we exist because we are love. Now, how we live our lives in this form as human beings through free will is another thing. But we exist in the first place because we are wholly loved children of God. We were created in love. So, in my relationships, in the past, I have gotten involved often, not 100% of the time, but often, often, often. I have gotten involved with people who did not want to fully commit. And I would get into a posture of, especially when I was a much younger adult, of where my actions or somehow I would voice, even if I didn't say these exact words, I would get into a posture of love me, love me, love me. Because if you love me, then I might love me, love me, love me. So I would go through so much pain in these relationships ending, and some of them lasted years. And some of them were short lived, but significant long term relationships. I have had. And actually, it was a short term relationship in 2010 that I was in. That when it ended, and it was a person that I cared about very much who's no longer living actually, but it wasn't the deepest love I ever felt, but I cared about this person and I was hurt by the things that transpired. And I was so hurt that I felt like I do not want to feel this pain anymore. I just don't want to feel this anymore. And what do I need to do, God? And the only thing that I could um, know and figure out is I've got to love me. And the only way I could come to love me was to go deeper into my relationship with God, which I already had, but I wanted to go deeper. So that's what I did. And over the years, that was 14 years ago when I consciously said I wanted to do this. And 2 years prior to that, um, I had joined a spiritual discussion group and I decided I was going to show up honestly. And all of this was coming to a crescendo because of the years before 2010. My mom had passed. I wanted to somehow be able to live authentically without her because I didn't know how I was going to continue without her. And so a part of that was me getting to um, self love and living honestly, being closer to God for me. So I did that. And before I get to this relationship that just ended, I want to bring up someone that I had been involved with for off and on for like 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, 2011. Off and on, this person was significant in my life. One of the things that often comes up for me with that relationship was years ago, this must have been 2007, 2008. He lived in LA, I lived in Atlanta, and we took a trip to Mexico. You know, what happens in Mexico stays in Mexico. So there's not a lot I can tell. There's not a lot I can tell. But I was not happy when we were in Mexico. And before we went to Mexico, like the night before, the day before, I knew I'm not happy in this relationship. Okay. And in Mexico, different things took place. And I was so upset. And he got mad at me. Right. And I find myself in a space when we're in Mexico of forgetting this isn't a relationship that I wanted to continue in. But now he's mad at me. And I'm trying to get him to not be mad at me, but to love me instead. This is like 2007, actually, 2007. And we get back to LA, and that's when we part because I'm going to fly back to Atlanta. And I went into the restroom at the airport. I went into the ladies' room and I went into a stall and I was crying and crying and crying because I was so hurt and filled with so many different emotions. And the emotions were, this person doesn't love me. I love this person. This person doesn't love me. I want this person to love me. And somewhere higher up in me, I knew, wait a minute, in the beginning of this trip, I didn't even really want to be in this relationship anymore. But this person doesn't love me, and I want this person to love me. And it sticks out for me because I think for me, and this could be something that some of us, other than me, have a tendency to have this happen where we know that we're not happy, but when that person starts acting in an unloving way, we might want to have them actually show us love again. So we forget how we feel, and because we're trying to get them to love us in the way that they have loved us before so that we can have love. And for me, that was a lack of self-love for myself. For me, that was a trap. It was a trick that I would play, that my ego would play. It was a lesson. It was a lesson. And so in this relationship with um, the person I was just involved with, uh, that started to happen at the end. That started to happen at the end. Before I get to some of the things that took place regarding me, because I'm not going to throw him under the bus. I'm not going to do that. I want to tell you how uh, giving, in what way this person was giving to me. We have known each other just over 9 months. And only a few months in, we met in October and February. We went to Japan. We just came back from Amsterdam. He went with me, uh, and it was his treat on to see my family in Virginia for a marathon, a half marathon that I was um, in March. In June, he flew me to Austin to see a friend for a very important weekend for me. Um, he has given me gifts. I mean, I'm forgetting things. He has given me gifts. Um, he has he has helped me in terms of funds sometimes. He has helped me in terms of funds. I am forgetting things. Okay, so but that's some of the things that he has done, and I I'm not a person that can turn off my love. So now that love may dissipate over time if we're not together, but um, I'm not going to love you today and not love you tomorrow. So I still have a great deal of love in my heart for this person. The one thing that we did not have in our relationship for me was communication. I'm a person that I need to talk things out. I need to have a conversation with you if about anything. If we're going to make plans, if I say something that rubs you the wrong way, if I tick you off, if you tick me off, if we have a disagreement, I need for us to talk that through so that I can understand, because I'm a person who has to understand. I have to understand. So I need to talk things through. And in us talking things through, then that's how we get to know each other and understand each other over time. So, and that builds trust. It builds, for me, that builds trust. And if we don't do that, which is what happened in this relationship, we weren't able to have conversations when a conflict came up, and conflicts would come up because the nature of our personalities was we would vibe in the most beautiful way, and then we could disagree in the most stark way. And when I saw, hey, this is a dynamic between us, I wanted us to address that. And um, he wasn't willing to do that. And one of my girlfriends says, because I would say, well, he doesn't communicate. He doesn't communicate. And my girlfriend would say, well, he communicates. He just don't communicate in the way that you like him to communicate. Because men that I have been involved with in the past have shut down. Now some might eventually come to communication, but others just shut down. That's just their way, with the men that I have been involved with in the past. So, um, when I saw this dynamic, um, I tried to have us both read this book that I have called Nonviolent Communication. And it's something that I have studied a great deal. So I really wanted us to really go through this book together. And so there wasn't a willingness to do that. And I also thought, well, how about if we go to counseling? We could go to a male counselor, and we could learn how to communicate with each other, not to deal with this problem or that problem. My goal was learn how to communicate when we come to a disagreement, because that is always going to happen. And we did go to one session. I thought the session went okay, fine. I think he thought the session went okay, and didn't I don't think he had complaints about the session, but he was not willing to go anymore. So as we continue to move forward, we would have these disagreements, and they were not easy to resolve, because there wasn't I will say, of course, I'm biased towards myself, but I am a communicator. And I've had two people, one in the last few days and another one years ago, um, say that my communication skills are almost a fault. I mean, my friend recently didn't say that it's a fault, but she was like, you're a high level communicator, and people don't communicate that well. And another friend, a male friend, had told me that years ago, you know, um, yeah, people don't communicate like you. And I'm like, I'm just talking. I'm just talking. I think that a lack of communication is the problem across our planet. If we could resolve communication, have a willingness to communicate across the world, from right in our own community to across the world, um, the people who are about well being and goodness in this world would um, come out on top. So, we didn't have a chance to communicate about so many different things, from the simplest things to the biggest things. One of the simplest things is uh, I love to watch different streaming shows. I'm really into words and the nuances of the story. And he might enjoy the same program, but he's just generally watching it. So he's not paying as close attention because he doesn't care as much, which is fine. But it was hard for us to really watch a show together and really enjoy that time together. So something as simple as that, we weren't able to discuss and say, "Hey, well, why don't we try to figure it out by doing it this way or by doing it that way?" It was the simplest of things to the biggest of things. Um, and so I would make him angry when I might react a certain way. We both like uh, Presumed Innocent, which is out right now on Apple. And we were going to watch that. I said, "Do you want to watch this?" And and this is just an example. That's all this is. But uh, when it came on, he really wanted to cuddle, and I said, "Were we going to cuddle or are we going to watch the show?" And so that he didn't like that. And you might not like that if somebody said that to you. I might not like that if somebody said that to me. I don't know. I don't know. But that turned into a shutdown. We weren't able to discuss it. we were able to um, come to an understanding. Uh, hey, I'm sorry, yada yada yada. We just there's so much that was me, and when I say me, as in I would rub him wrong about something, and we could not have an honest exchange of communication about the thing that I might have ticked him off about. And most of the time, it was I was ticking him off. Not that he didn't tick me off, because he could tick me off a lot, but it was usually in reaction to how he was reacting to something I did. It wasn't often, not never, but it wasn't often that I said, "Hey, I don't like when you do that." It did come up. It did come up sometimes. But this was, for me, a beautiful relationship that could have worked for years and years had we been able to talk to each other. But one person, you need two people or more to communicate. It cannot just be one person. I feel like I understand people. I like people. I want to connect with people and know who they are. So it's something I'm more in tune to because it's something that I like to do. So I do understand him and how he is, but I wasn't really understood. And the one thing that people love me for, which is my heart and my spirit, it's the one thing that the men in my past have loved me for, my family loves me for, my friends love me for, is my heart and my spirit, the purity of my heart and my spirit. And the purity of that rises above any personality that might come out that might rub you the wrong way. The purity of who I am rises above that. And the comfort that I have being in this world without my immediate family, being my parents and my brothers, is that my extended family, my close friends, the men in my past, that they see that in me and know that about me, that helps me to see myself. So when the man in my life, the one who was in my life most presently, or most recently, I should say, doesn't see that in me, but sees more, has more of a dislike for my personality and a rejection of who I really am. It's sad. It's sad for me. It makes me sad. It has me sad. And it could hurt. It could hurt. So I'm coming back to the self love. Um, we took a trip to Amsterdam, and he actually asked me to go to Amsterdam with him, mm, maybe a week or two after we met. It was a trip that he wanted to take to go to this music festival in Amsterdam. Is really a wonderful, wonderful place. I see why so many people love it, and it reminds me of New York City. And so it was really nice. And we had a fabulous flight over. One thing that I didn't say that when we flew to Japan, there and back, we flew Delta One. Um, Actually, flying back from Delta One, there was only one Delta. Excuse me, flying back from Japan, there was only one Delta One seat available. The other one was in business class. So he gave me the Delta One seat. That was when we went to Japan. And then on this trip, we flew uh, Delta One there and back. And on the trip over, it was just a fabulous flight. We were so connected. We were so happy. And one thing that happened that speaks to, um, well, we don't know each other well enough yet is he is retired from Delta. And so he has these a set number of uh, times that he can fly Delta One. And so he only has so many left. And so he was saying to me a couple of times, like when we were in the airport before the flight, and then when we got on the flight, a couple of times he was like, "Yeah, we only have this number left, and after this, we won't be able to fly Delta One again." And so, and then he said it again on the flight. Yeah, this will never happen again, never. And so I am a person that, and this seems like so like unimportant, but it speaks to not knowing each other, come to a misunderstanding, and then that misunderstanding, piles up onto another misunderstanding and another misunderstanding. And this is why communication is so important. So important. So who I am is I don't like to put anything like that out into the universe. I don't like to put out any I can't do things out into the universe. Anything, I don't like to put anything that is impossible, that any statement of impossibility or never out into the universe. It is something that really goes against my being because I do feel like I'm out here, on my own. And it's just, without God in my life, who has always been a huge part of my life, my entire life, and I was just relying on my own abilities, I just would not have any blessings. I would not have any blessings. So I I said something like, well, for yourself, speak for yourself. That's in the airport. I had said, well, we don't know what could happen. My podcast could blow up, as in a good way. We could, anything could happen. We could have any kind of opportunities that may bring a windfall, and then we can fly Delta One whenever we want to. And then when it came up again on the plane, I said, listen, speak for yourself. That does not, reflect me in the way that I think. And, uh, that didn't set well with him. And I can understand why that would not set well, I guess, but again, I'm getting back to, um, well, let me say this. I could have been more mindful or thoughtful in the moment and said, hey, I don't want this to sound this way. This is how, I think. I could have come back followed up in a gentle, soft way. And I think what I'm trying to say is that I want to be known. I want you to know me for me so that this doesn't bother you. So that when I say something, it doesn't bother you because you know who I am. You know how I think, my heart and my spirit. And you know how I feel about such things, right? And so that simple thing, there was another simple thing and another simple thing. And so it led to shutdowns on this trip to Amsterdam. And it got to a point where I started to not feel emotionally safe because I felt like, um, one, um, and I don't know this for a fact, that there were other people on this trip. For a fact, there were other people on this trip. There were a few other couples, one being his close friend, and I thought that he had communicated, a disagreement that we had to this person, which actually I do know that he did that because he brought it up again later after I thought this with me there. And I just like to feel like, um, I'm being looked out for, that my heart and my spirit are being looked out for. And it just so much angst was developing between us that I didn't feel like I was being looked out for, in an emotional way in this foreign country. And it got to the point where I wanted to be close, and I felt the wall up, and I'm starting to have, um, I'm starting to reflect on the LA trip I mentioned. And, um, because I had already been thinking, like, do I want to be in a relationship, like this with this dynamic? And then, but then I'm feeling so unloved that I wanted to be loved. I'm getting upset because I'm realizing what I'm doing. At least inside, I'm feeling like, love me, love me, love me. And I realize what I'm doing, that desire that I have. And I'm like, well, what about the truth over here about how you feel about some of the dynamics in this relationship, where you don't even know if this relationship is what you desire because of some of the dynamics. And I felt so unseen. And I started wishing that I would run into somebody that I know, because, we were in the hotel we were staying in had this lobby bar where every night everybody, guests were, bustling and eating and drinking in the bar. And it was a really nice atmosphere. And I started just at the festival, at the hotel, I just started wanting to see somebody who might see me, because I felt like the person I was with did not see me. And I figured, living in Atlanta, I used to work in a jazz club for years, more than one, over the years. So I thought, well, if anything, if I see anybody I know, it's likely to be a musician. But I didn't see a musician. I didn't see, anyone that I knew. And when we left, the day that we left and we went to the airport, I was walking in front of him. Well, when we were on the train to go to the airport, I was thinking, I was hurting so bad. And I was thinking, I just wish I could see somebody who would see me. I just wanted somebody to see me, like see me, because I felt like this person I'm with does not see me. And I imagined uh, seeing some elderly lady, and she sees me and with like some kind of recognition, and she'd be like, I see you, baby. I see you, I mean, that's something when you feel like that. And we were in the uh, walking up, the lines, the moving lines when you're walking up to security. And I was walking um, ahead of him. And so my back was to him, and I was crying, like tears are coming down. And normally I would have on glasses that I think could mask this, or I could hold in my tears, but I had broken my glasses on the trip. And so I'm walking, and I see this man looking at me, And I'm like, this man's looking at me like he's trying to acknowledge me, like I know him, but I'm in Amsterdam, you know? And as I approach him, I realize that I do know this person. And it was somebody that I know. And I was just like, "Oh God," you know? So I said hi. And so at that point, just passing the person. But I also felt like, "Oh shit, did this person see me see that I was crying?" I felt very naked in my face. And uh, then the way the lines were zigzagging, we passed each other again, and he asked me about, a mutual friend. And then later, when we were at our gate, he came up and he talked to me and my former boyfriend. Um, uh, we were sitting down at a gate, and he came up and he talked for 15 minutes, 15 20 minutes, and I thought that was um, God. I was like, he's talking to us, but we're sitting down and he's standing up talking to us. And I thought, man, I manifested you, you know, like this is just somebody, this is not a close friend of mine. He's somebody that, I think highly of. And I know him in two ways. I know him, one through a mutual friend, and then I know him through another girlfriend who is friends with his wife. So, um, he's somebody that, and I did some work with him, um, years ago on, his book. So, it's not somebody that I'm super close with, but just was a blessing that day. I just wanted somebody to see me, and somebody saw me. And then when I got on the plane and I'm sitting in front of my former boyfriend, and I'm just looking out the window, and I'm just getting filled up with so much emotion. And the um, flight attendant comes by, and she could see I was crying. She came by to ask me a question. Did I want something? And then she could see that I was crying. And then she was really kind. And because I did not want anybody to see me crying because I was facing the window, you know. And but she was like, "Can I get anything for you?" Like she put her hand like up on my back, and she said, "Can I get anything for you?" And I just said, "No, I'm fine." And just, that little act of kindness was sweet, like somebody saw me. So, um, one thing that I did not say, and I should have said this in the beginning, like this relationship ended because he ended it. And although I had just mentioned, hey, look, there's these things that came up, um, where I'm like, is this really what I want? I did not end this. And I'm 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 okay where we are right now, as in over, but I did not end this. I did not want to end this. But uh, he ended it by saying, I want to get my stuff back that's, at your place. But uh, I want to, when I got back, I had to really sort things out for myself for how I was feeling and the pain. Um, I was crying off and on in the way that I had mentioned I was with the former relationship. Um, but I think that when someone tells you that in so many words that they don't want you, then if somebody tells me in so many words that they don't want me, then I believe them. And so then my self worth does kick in. It does. It's like, okay, all right, One of the things that I have to do for myself is have closure with a thing. And um, I woke up one morning. It was the day before he was coming to get his belongings. And I decided I wanted to write a note to him. And then I was like, do I want to give this note to him, or am I just writing this for myself? And I sat with it for a while and I realized, no, this is what I want to do for closure. So, because there was a lot of negativity whenever he would text me, about something like, what day is a good day to get together, to what day is a good day to meet, so we could exchange our belongings. And it was just a lot of negativity, and I so much is going on that I'm not sharing right now. There's so much going on in this world of mine that I live in that I could not take this. So um, I wrote this text, and the text says, and I don't know that he has ever read this text. And I'm gonna hold this up. I don't know if you can see that. Monday, July 22nd. And see all of that. Okay. Well, I'm gonna read some of it to you. And I just let me see. Okay. I'm gonna read some of it to you. Some people don't like when you read them stuff, so I'll make it quick. So it says, my heart hurts so much, and I just don't want all this negativity between us. It's really more than I can bear right now. When you pick up your things tomorrow, it might be the last time I see you. Our paths aren't likely to cross again. I want you to know that I love you deeply. I understand you. As much as we disagree, we're not so different in our heart of hearts. I know that under I know that under any cold exterior you exude, you only want to be loved. Your heart is delicate, to be treated with care. Just as under whatever strong exterior you see with me, I believe you know that I want to be loved, and my heart is delicate. And to be treated, I want to be treated with care too. I wish we had been able to establish lasting trust in the sharing of our innermost selves with each other. And I wish that trust would have allowed us to see each other through disagreements that arose between us. I wish there was a space for both the love and understanding that we've had between us to exist in lasting peace. My prayer for myself now is for my heart to accept what is. I want there, excuse me, I want to share this with you now so that when negative feelings that you have toward me dissipate, you are reminded of what is true, and that is, I love you. Breaking up is not what I've wanted, but even not being together, what I want, what I do want, and what I pray for is all good things for you: safety, joy, and happiness and well being. For me, life is too short and delicate for me to have something left unsaid. So I needed to express this. Un- Under all the anger and resentment that you might hold toward me, know that I love you always. And my thoughts and prayers will always want good things for you. So this was a text of, for me, acceptance of this is over. I want you to know how I feel about you. How I feel about you is real and was real, and that I only want your well being going forward. There's nothing wrong with still acknowledging feelings about a person when something ends. When the relationship ends, it's okay to still acknowledge those feelings. I think that's being adult, mature, evolved, and whole. I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm not going to lie to myself. Um, it's been such a process for me in my relationships uh, with men because when I didn't have self love, I showed up in a certain way. I accepted things from men. And usually, it's so interesting because usually they're drawn to me they're um because they're drawn to the love inside me. It's almost intoxicating, the love, the real love inside me. But that's not really what they want, even though they're drawn to that. And they're not necessarily available. Maybe it's what they want, but they're not emotionally available for that love. Or maybe that love is just too much. One of my close male friends who knows me inside and out will be like, you a lot. He thinks I am the best person, outside of his wife and children and sister, the best person walking this earth, you know, loves me, loves me. But he's like, your love is massive once you get there. Once a person gets there, that love is massive. Not everybody can deal with that love. So I do understand this, right? But this person I was just involved with, he only saw glimpses of that because he would only allow for glimpses of that. We had some wonderful times, wonderful connections between us, wonderful. But um, there would be a pushing away um, sometimes after that great time, or when the shutdown would come because I might say something that he might disagree with. There is no willingness to really want to understand. Um, hey, this is where I was coming from, or this is me, or, you know. So um, I wanted to share some of the emotions that I went through and having to maintain um, my place if I felt like, wait, I'm losing my grip on my own self-worth. And hopefully I've communicated that um, if it's one thing that I know, it's that I'm a good person. I know who I am. And, I do know, that I'm a loving, good, caring about my fellow man person. And it does hurt when somebody doesn't see that in me that I care about. If it's somebody that I don't care about, then maybe I don't care. But somebody that I care about doesn't see that in me, yeah, that can hurt. That can hurt. And I felt myself slipping. I felt myself slipping. Um, of course, I want the person I love to love me. Of course, I want that. That's human. We love somebody, we want them to love us back. Um, but if they don't, I don't want to lose me and that person not loving me back. Because then that doesn't have to do with me. But when I'm hurt, talking about myself, I can lose sight of that maybe. I mean, uh, I got I got a grip on it. I got a grip on it, and I'm doing well. Um, there are a lot of wonderful things about this relationship, and it's I don't know. As time goes by, I may come to understand what the thing was for, which is something that comes up in my spirituality. What's the thing for? Because there's no reason why this relationship could not have been a relationship that lasted as long as we both were on this planet, because it was only a matter of being willing for us to understand and communicate with each other. So that didn't happen, and I'm accepting of that. And this is not in any way um, a way to try to change what is, because that's not what this is about. It's not what this is about. This is about trying to address a relationship that I brought up on this podcast before, and trying to address some of the dynamics that come up for me around relationships and my walk through this world, that I hope can help anybody who experiences similar things, and know how important it is to stand in your truth. And that does not mean to be unkind, uh, or to disregard uh, another person or the person that we love. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean to not let someone take us out of who we are, because often my inner strength would come up as a dynamic. My inner strength was criticized, but my inner strength is what has gotten me through the passing of my mother, my father, my brothers, um, gotten me through relationships, um, has gotten me through difficult times. So I know what my inner strength is, and I want you to, whatever you might be going through, to remember your gifts and who you are. Remember your gifts and who you are. Um, my mom, she told me something one time, when was two things. One time I was really, really upset about something that my brother said to me, and it shook me. It shook me, shook me, shook me. And I was crying to my mom, and my mom says to me, "Don't ever let anybody change who you are." You know, she was so serious. Don't ever let anybody change who you are. And then I went to church. That was when I was going to church fairly regularly. And the priest basically said the same thing, pretty much said those exact words. And then another time, and this speaks to being misunderstood, um, when my mom was, it was a couple of months before she passed, and she was in my apartment, and she was in a hospital bed. And basically, I was writing this review. You know how we have to do the self review? I'm forgetting the exact word for our job. And I was having a difficult time. Excuse me. I was having a difficult time with my supervisor at that time, which was well known among the higher ups. And so I was trying to write out stuff um, in this in this review, and I had typos in it, and I was typing, and I had typos in it, and I don't know why I was having such a difficult time with this thing. I mean, it took me hours to complete. And so finally I just said, "Ugh, it is what it is." And I sent it in. And so I went in the bedroom where my mom was, And I just sat on the bed and I was just like, I just sent this review and it had in all these typos. And my mom said, do they know you? So I said, yeah, but you don't understand who's going to see this, yada, yada, yada. And she said, do they know you? And so then I said, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. And she asked me again, do they know you? And so I said, yes. And so she said, well, then don't worry about it. And how little did I know how powerful those words would be to me for years and years. One, it never came up because I thought, oh, somebody's going to come back with me about, the typos in this thing. It never came up. But two, in one of my spiritual discussion groups, um, more than a couple of years after my mom passed, I happened to bring this up. I don't know why I brought it up, but the facilitator of the group would just bring this up to me for years to come. We'd be in our circle and she would say, it's what Adrianne's mother said. And she would tell this story about how I brought this up. It's what she said. Do they know you? And if they don't know you, they just don't know you. Because if they knew you, then they would know who you are. And thankfully, a few friends have said that to me in different ways recently. So there we have it. Do with that what you may. I hope it helps someone. Let's start healing.